Veteran Salute is sponsored by the Devon James Injury Lawyers.
An Air Force retiree says he knew very early on he would someday join the military.
Mike Henry used to build model military planes, and as Gwen Bevel and photojournalist Nick Kiefer show us, he made a career out of working on the real ones.
That's right. Before he retired from the military, Henry worked on 30 different kinds of aircraft in many places all over the world. He says those he worked with mean the most to him. He says the camaraderie you build in the military lasts forever.
This is what it looked like at 19 years old.
The Vietnam draft was still going on when Mike Henry signed up to serve. He says sometimes it got tough out on the flight line.
We went from a rainstorm to a sleet storm to heavy snow, and we're trying to fix airplanes.
And one time he was doing just that in Greenland.
When it gets almost zero, then the ice runway out there starts to liquefy, and then it's really hard to get off.
You know it's cold when these huge cargo planes need snow skis.
Then we went to Minot, North Dakota.
There he worked on B-52s and KC-135s, but Henry says he will never forget his very first plane, the SR-71.
They're the highest flying, fastest jets ever made. They were photo reconnaissance or spy planes.
He says they were also the toughest to work on.
Then we get sent to Alaska, where we've got a dozen different airplanes up there, so I had to be a jack of all trades there.
Henry says after many years in the Air Force, he and his wife wanted to stay in Wichita.
Being in the military, you never know when they were going to move you.
Henry took a job in the civilian world, but was laid off a short time later, so he signed up for a different branch of service.
This is my Navy days.
Those days turned into 2 years for the sailor who was at times in very tight quarters on a ship.
You get up, somebody else takes your bunk. You go to work, and somebody else sleeps where you were sleeping.
Then Henry got word the same plane he was working on in the Navy was also being maintained by the Kansas National Guard, and he was given the number to a commander.
I was told, don't call during duty hours. Go home and call from your house and call him at home. So I called him at home, and he said, you're hired.
While in the Guard, Henry was an advisor teaching mechanics at McConnell Air Force Base.
I knew all the guys in the shop. I trained most of them.
Henry eventually went back to active duty and was back to the plane he knew well.
I had to write the course for the airplane when they put new engines on it. And so I ended up as a training instructor.
Henry says his students were from all over the world, and the toughest part was helping them troubleshoot issues.
They'd been in high school 6 months before, and they may not have been mechanically inclined.
He says years after his retirement, 2 of his students reached out. One apologized for throwing tools at Henry. The other just wanted to say this.
He called me up one day, he found me on Facebook and said, I want to thank you for everything you've done. You turned me into a man.
Henry says those 2 students alone made all of his years of instructing worth it.
When you see the light come on in their eyes, it's like that light bulb going on over their head, then you know you've done your job correctly. Yes.
Henry also earned many accolades for a job well done.
I'm receiving a medal.
He says the biggest reward over all his years was watching aircraft they repaired get back in the air. You might recognize Henry and his wife Linda as they are 20-year volunteers at Cowtown Museum, a place you can catch them in action on Sundays during the live performances. Henry plays the doctor. I'll hear for you, Gwen Bevel, KSN News 3.
On behalf of Devon James Injury Lawyers, we're honored to be here with this week's Veteran of the Week, Tech Sergeant Mike Henry, who served over 20 years in the Air Force and also 2 years in the Navy. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much.
Veteran Salute is sponsored by the Devon James Injury Lawyers.